Good morning, everybody. I'll just give you just a couple of moments and then we'll get started. So perfect. So as people are joining us this morning, I'll get us started with today's webinar, which is all around setting up and sustaining a community platform. I'm delighted to be joined by our friends from Cantarus today, and we'll hear from them a little bit more. So Mark, if I could ask you just to move the slide on for me. Perfect. So those of you that have joined probably many of our Hart Square webinars will be very familiar with our etiquette, but again, as people are joining today, just so that you know the session is being recorded, please do use the Q&A box for questions for Mark and James throughout the webinar. Send them in at any time and we'll address them certainly during the presentation or at our Q&A session at the end. If you've got any other questions, technical support, general questions, do use the chat box and I'll pick those up in the background as well. And you should all be on mute automatically as part of the Zoom webinar process. Perfect. So for those of you who don't know about Hart Square, it's literally just a slide about us. We only work in the non-profit sector and we have been doing since 2009. And our independence is at the heart of what we do. So in terms of tech partners we work with, the suppliers, our impartiality is really important to us. Thanks, Mark. So today's webinar is all around community platforms, and there may be a few of you out there who actually joined a session that we ran earlier on in the year with Cantarus again around what it meant to have an online presence and what that meant, you know, versus having a community platform. It was really insightful, it was really popular, so we wanted to continue the conversation today, but as a standalone session. So whether you joined us last time or not, we're really pleased you're here, and we're going to continue the theme around, you know, what is a community platform, and what does it take to build and nurture it? How can you use it as a catalyst to engage your members, increase the impact? What's the value and benefits of adopting one? You know, what can it do for your members? How will they gain the benefits? What will your staff see from that? We're going to talk about, you know, some of the problems and the challenges that actually having a community platform can address. What things can they solve? We also know that as you approach a community go live, actually, you know, you build up to that moment, but actually it can also get sometimes kind of less traction and it's less successful than you actually expect it to be. So why is that? We'll have a look at some of those, you know, some of the conversations around that and see what we can do to help you avoid those common pitfalls and talk around a little about those engagement levels. And then actually I'm really interested in this next little bit as well about what Mark and James can tell us about that best practice when setting something up. So around content, events, special interest groups, and I'm sure they'll talk a little bit more about that more as well. I can see Mark's really keen to get going here. But you know, let's talk about how to curate that content, who should do it and keep it going. So on that note, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Rebecca, I'm Programme Delivery Manager here at Hart Square. And as we can see, I've been joined on screen here by Mark and James. So maybe just a quick word from you both. Mark, first.
Sure. Thanks, Rebecca. I'm Mark Eichler, Principal Consultant with Cantarus. I've been in the membership sector as staff in running technology and membership bodies in the United States, but also as a product manager and building online community platforms, and now with Cantarus, being on the product side as well as the delivery side, as we deliver online community for about 25 different membership bodies, mostly in the UK, and happy to share some of those experiences from working with dozens and dozens of membership bodies in the US and the UK in adopting online community and building the platforms to meet those needs.
Brilliant, perfect, a wealth of experience there. And James, a little bit from you as well.
Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, good to be here. And yeah, so my name's James. I have also spent quite a bit of time in the membership sector before joining Cantarus. I was at the IOD for 10 years, where for the last three years there, I was head of membership experience and headed up the IOD's online community efforts. At Cantarus, I work on the strategic consulting team and predominantly provide technology strategy consultancy services to our clients. So good to be here, Rebecca.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So before we get into the main part of the presentation, just want to run a poll. So I'm really interested to know, where is your organisation on the online community journey? So I'm just going to launch the poll so that you can see some of the answers as I talk through them as well. So that should appear on screen. And, you know, have you actually implemented your online community platform or your, you know, your groups already, and it's working well, but you're here just to do a bit of fact finding, what else you can do? Is it implemented, but you've still got more work to do on that, further development at the start of the project? Are you considering systems and platforms to use? Or is it other? You might be seeking more information. You might just be wondering a little bit more about actually what they are. So give it another moment. And then I'll end the poll. And let me share the results with you. Fab. So actually, it's fairly equally split between kind of those middle three. So between implemented but development so soon at the start of the project, or considering systems. So actually, Mark, James, that's interesting for us just to bear in mind as we go through the presentation today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we're seeing here is that this is pretty common in the membership sector right now in the UK. I think that right now, a lot of membership bodies are really interested in understanding and how to adopt and how to bring forward online community. It's part of the reason that I have no time in my diaries, because I'm helping a lot of membership bodies think about how they can get the most out of the system they've already adopted, or what the different options are that they may want to bring forward. So we are seeing a big uptick in interest in online community ever since the lockdowns, for certain.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mark. And if you were one of the others and you want to let us know, you know, where you are on the online community journey, in case you know, or if you've got any specific questions, then feel free, again, use the chat Q&A, and the same for everybody. You know, we really want to engage with you throughout this session. So I'm just going to stop sharing.
Okay.
Great. So on that note, I'll hand over Mark and James to you both.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. So yeah, thank you all for joining us today. We're going to take a broad look at online communities and how they're applied, and how, after they're initially implemented, how you might want to extend them. Of course, how you might want to extend and get more value from online community does depend on what you stood up online community to do initially, and where your broader goals are for your membership body. So yeah, we're certainly going to be touching base on all the points you can see on the screen, but we're going to set the stage by just looking at what that word of community. Community is a very powerful word. It's loaded with connotations of common good, emotional support, collective well-being. You may feel those connotations coming to you on this next slide here. But online community platforms, while they are robust enough to deliver an emotional connection and be the platform on which relationships actually developed, it is important to recognize that we are talking about a software product. Step back from the word community a little bit and think about online community platforms as a genre of software product, which is not unlike some of the other elements that are in the tech stack of a membership body. You know, you've got your CRM system, you've got your CMS platform, you've got your learning management system, perhaps. And the online community platform is another piece of that story. And it has specific features and functions that it does, that it delivers. And these are used or not used by membership bodies to achieve lots of different specific goals. The platforms are deeply configurable. They can be branded, styled with all the flexibility for branding purposes of a primary web presence. You can make them look and feel like part of your web presence, or a unique member portal, for example. But they are able to achieve all kinds of different business needs in the membership sector. Obviously, a forum for all members to ask questions to other members is probably at the top of the list, but that's just the beginning of the story. They are able to be oriented towards events, to be the place where after the event is over, the registrants, and only the registrants, if you like, can go look at the videos from the event and carry on the conversations further with the event presenters and the other delegates and folks that attended the event. They can be oriented for a learning platform, so that this is the course, the online community segment of a little course, so that people can have that private online space and interact with the instructor and get all their assets for the course there, such as the files and the videos and all those things. And the there's polling functionality. There's all kinds of assessment tools in online communities as well. So every membership body ideally is looking at these kinds of core business needs, right, to deliver a configured, semi-customized, they're so configurable that it will feel like a custom environment, even if you didn't actually get out your developer's toolkit and start writing a lot of code for it. Although that is possible in most platforms. They are open CSS and HTML, so you can add some pages or add some, certainly make it styled to your branding guidelines. But every membership body implementation should ideally consider the reason you're establishing it, the goals, culture of the organization, the size of the population to be supported, and other things when bringing forth that online community. So members use online community for tangible business goals. The community platform can deliver an emotional payload, but this isn't typically what leads in professional associations and most membership organizations. It can in the charitable sector, obviously. We're going to look at a community in a minute that is in the charitable sector that is leading on the unicorn side. But what typically succeeds in the professional bodies is a community that delivers tangible member benefits for the same reasons that members join the organization: to do their jobs better, to advance their careers, to find that next good job, to understand the best solutions, to get home to their kids faster, right? The same things that an online community can do should be aligned with like hard member benefit delivery. And so to drive this point home a little bit more, rather than our friend the unicorn, James and I would like to bring forward another online community consultant, which is our friend Gordon Gekko from the movie Wall Street. You may remember him as being the exact opposite of a rainbow riding unicorn. In fact, he may eat unicorns for breakfast. He's that kind of personality. So James, wanted to ask you, what is your favorite Gordon Gekko quote?
Oh man, you put me on the spot. Oh yes, lunches for wimps. But possibly unicorns are for lunch. But no, I think in all seriousness, at the IOD, my kind of experience of online community there was probably more towards the Gordon Gekko end of the spectrum, I suspect.
Yeah, I would say that, certainly the directors and CEOs of the IOD, they were they don't have a lot of time, and they are looking for the best information on how to succeed with their businesses. And those are actually two of the quotes that I remember from Wall Street that are directly applicable to thinking about online community experiences in the membership sector, right? The most valuable commodity I know of is information. And that, community as a source of information, as a conduit for information to be delivered and then further developed. You think about a PDF that might be on your website that's valuable to your members and your membership body. Think about conversations around that, extending it. Think about the experts talking about that document or debating that document and the points that it's making in a platform that all members can access. Think about recommended iterations upon it in a small or a large group, so that there is a collaborative workspace for it with an actual wiki functionality so they can collaboratively edit that document. So the community is going to be an information delivery and creation platform when you want it to be that way. So that's a big delivery point for online community on the member benefit side. And then the other point is not wasting time. I think that online communities are going to drive efficiencies for members in getting the information they want, having the connections that they want, getting the answers for the questions expeditiously, right? A lot of people in the membership sector will have the same kind of questions. And so answering that question once through an online community and allowing the online community to deliver that web content for the answered question will allow people to find the answer sitting there waiting for them in many cases, rather than requiring they actually ask that question. So the final point that I just want to reinforce is that members use online communities for the same reasons they join membership bodies. It's to do their jobs better in the membership sector. Now, that isn't but online communities are applied in different ways across different sectors. And certainly the online communities are robust enough to reflect the personality and the culture of membership bodies. So what I want to do now is just take a look at that dichotomy, right, on the emotional and heuristic side of communities, but also the tangible and functional aspects of online communities and how they're used, by looking at a few communities that are outside the sector and then one or two that are in the sector, in the membership body professional sector specifically. And Gordon and our unicorn friend here are going to help us do this analysis by allowing us to use this very scientific unicorn gecko index of the soft side of communities on the left and the hard side and transactional aspects of communities on the right. So we're going to look at a few communities here. And Rebecca, I think that you've got the links to a lot of these communities here. The ones that are open, you can go visit, and we're going to facilitate that now. And so the first one is a 2 on the unicorn gecko index, which means it's very emotionally centered, not tangible transactional benefits delivered here. And this is for the Canadian Football League. So in Canada, they have their own kind of football. They have their own kind of football fans. They have their own culture around being a fan and getting the rumors for what's going to happen on the next game and debating the coach's strategy and all those things. There's not a lot of opportunity to make money or get home to your kids faster through a college through the Canadian Football League's online community. It is going to be delivered primarily to deliver on an emotional topic. People are fans of these things and people want to get more out of their fandom, right? So very much on the left-hand side, on the emotional side of the spectrum here. James, the MS Society is also on that side a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say they're also on the emotional end of the spectrum. So I think that this community is really orientated around providing that safe space for people affected by MS, to enabling them to share their experiences and sort of to help each other cope with the challenges of living with that condition. Interestingly enough, it's also worth looking at the community rules that kind of underpin these communities. So for the MS Society, for example, the rules are kind of focused on things like be nice, be kind, no jokes. So they're really reflective of that, that kind of emotional focus, providing that welcome and that friendly, that warm environment. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if Gordon was on the forum, he would have been kicked out by the mods in relatively short order. So.
Yeah, I think so too, perhaps, James. And it is important to note that there are specific charitable communities that are more on the gecko side of the spectrum. When physicians are involved, they're talking about treatments. I've been helping support communities where they're physicians are sharing pictures of eye surgeries, right? And radiography within the online community to facilitate the conversations there. So, a health concern can be across the spectrum. And that's a good example as to where, well, what are you trying to deliver? What is the population of the community that you're serving? What do they need? Reflecting the configuration, the tone, and the configuration points all the way down to, as James is pointing out, the agreement to terms and the conditions of use of the community. So here's another community example. This is one that apparently they took down the big gorgeous banner for the game here, but this is Infinite Flight, which is a video game. And the video game communities are one of the very popular. There are hundreds of video game communities out there on the internets. It is a place for enthusiasts of the game to get tips and tricks and share videos and look, I beat this guy and all that kind of stuff is there. But it is a little bit more on the business side for the providers of the community, which is the software company providing that, publishing and manufacturing that game. It is where their product teams are reading those posts and understanding how well it is the product of the game is delivering on the goals for it with the user satisfaction. If there's bugs or things that are not quite right, the community will talk about those things, and the company is in a position to respond back and say, yes, that's going to be fixed in this next game, or we appreciate knowing that you like the glow in the dark sword that can be found on level 6. All those things are a little bit more serious from the perspective of the video game manufacturer who's using the community to gather really robust information to continue their game's evolution and drive sales. Speaking of sales, James, here's a community that's facilitated by Amazon. What's this all about?
Yeah, so this is a community for users who are looking to exchange and source information on things like advice and deals and special offers relating to kind of picking up products on Amazon. So really definitely orientated more towards generating kind of business outcomes rather than that emotional satisfaction. And again, the community guidelines for the Woot community reflect this. So it's focused on things like don't post personally identifiable information, don't post ads, don't post fake reviews, etc. So a real contrast between the guidelines in place on the Woot community and say the guidelines that we outlined for the MS community earlier.
Yeah, thanks, James. And then one last one that's visible and available to you that is in the links provided, and this is the online community for developers on the Twitter platform, right? So this is basically a purely transactional community. People go in here to figure out how to solve a problem so they can get their project done and bill the client. There's not going to be a lot of small talk and coffee conversations in here. In the MS community, if you explore that, you'll see that people are sharing pictures of the birds in their backyards and things like that, right? Really kind of gorgeous, beautiful stuff. There's not going to be a lot of gorgeous, beautiful stuff when people are talking about their tips for getting SSO done a little bit better against a SAML standard, all that kind of developer talk that I like to listen to, but cannot often participate in those conversations. Very much a transactional community here, very much on the Gordon Gekko side of the spectrum. So what does this all mean for the membership sector, right? Here's an online community that actually Cantarus facilitates for the British Computer Society. And James, can you tell us a little bit about this community and where it is on the spectrum and how they're using it?
For sure. So definitely, I think midway along the spectrum that they have a blended value proposition at the BCS. So some of the most successful threads on that community verge, more onto the emotional side. So I think I think in its early days there was a thread, what was your first computer, which obviously has a relatively kind of emotional basis, but that elicited a huge number of responses. I think it was over 100. I can't quite recall. But the main focus of the community is on helping members to make contacts, engage in networking, learn from one another, sharing knowledge and providing mutual support. And I think the tagline for the community, the way the BCS promote it to their members is as a way of helping to further their career in IT. So definitely midway along the spectrum there, I think.
Yeah, thanks, James. I would agree with that. And I think that that topic on what was your first computer, it had 100 posts in the first week, and then it's continued to blossom to over 200 at this point. So people like to go to their basement and take pictures of their dusty machine, but many people, especially in the BCS, were obviously able to find those pictures of those legacy machines on the internet. Another membership body that we support online community for is obviously the Law Society pictured here, the Law Society of England and Wales. Their members are a little less chatty. Their orientation is towards specific how do I do, what's the best resource kinds of questions. Yes, they have a very robust introduce yourself thread, and they are, generous with their time and very polite, but the utility of the community is more towards the gecko scale than the unicorn, if you will. There is opportunity for sharing some personal insights, but the focus in the community management strategy of it is to facilitate the members getting questions like, how do I get something notarized during lockdown, right? Which is more common and more often the kind of conversations rather than, share something about your past. Let's talk about something that has an emotional quotient to it really significantly. So with those examples, and unfortunately we can't dive in and give you links to those communities, but we have focused on them with some in the previous webinar. I think we shared some live views of those, which could be possible again in the future. But regardless, online communities for membership bodies, for professional membership bodies, is that they're commonly on the right side of the spectrum, right? They're commonly on the member benefit delivery side of the spectrum, although there will be the emotional point that can be made. It's often important to establish the community as being inclusive of culturally appropriate elements, right, with the look and feel before the launch. But you can expect that as the information is delivered that's of value, and as members start to engage on that information, right, they will have those conversations, and from those conversations and the appreciation of the sharing, that community will, for a membership body, will typically start to slide a little bit further to the left. But you definitely want to start your online community with delivering information that's of professional value to your members, and I'll make sure that whatever business needs you brought forward were reflected in the strategy for the community delivery. Now, the last point about strategy is it's very important to acknowledge the power of an online community platform within the context of a larger digital strategy, right? A lot of membership bodies will have multiple channels for information delivery and even some for sharing. Obviously, membership bodies can have a social media presence, but it's really common for a membership body to have a journal, and then also a learning program, and then also a website, and also blogs, and also lots of different silos of content, right? Events, right? So it's a pretty common thing where a member's like, okay, I know that I saw this really good piece of information from my membership body, but I don't remember if it was in the course that I took, or whether it was in the presentation that I saw, or whether I read it on the website, or whether I got it in the journal, right? So membership bodies can often and do utilize the online community to reflect and link out and facilitate discussion on the totality of the content. And that can be part of the digital strategy, but understanding how this can be used and how it fits within the larger presence of the user experience of a member utilizing your digital presence is really important. And to think about it in terms of that larger digital strategy is important, right? But many membership bodies have not yet created a digital strategy, right? And so if in the absence of a digital strategy, there are some really quick ways to assess where online community might provide value for you, right? Do a very quick and dirty digital needs analysis, with your colleagues over a cup of coffee or a lunch, and just ask some of these questions, right? Let's look for opportunities to enhance, or maybe problems, in a very few specific areas, right? And interconnectivity. Can members ask questions to other members at all right now? Can members showcase the solutions and their best work that they've done? Are member-generated solutions utilized as content in a very rapid and meaningful way, so that other members can benefit from the professional experiences of their colleagues in the membership body, right? The knowledge problems, right? Are there content gaps? Are there places where content is needed but has not yet been developed? Also, do we know if there are content gaps? Do our members give us the opportunity to let us know where they feel we could, as a membership body, support their informational needs better by focusing on this area or that area, right? Awareness of those gaps, right? Awareness gaps. Are there gaps on X% of your members don't even know that you're producing this really good content, because maybe your delivery systems are fragmented. Maybe people are, the member newsletter is the primary channel for alerting people of new content, and X% of your members have turned off or sending that to spam because they just want to guard their email inbox in a way that is maybe not aligned with their membership. Are there user experience gaps? Members don't know where that content might exist. Again, that's that silos problem. And then content marketing gaps. I don't know, do members know how they can find out the latest information from the membership body as to what the new content might be available? Segmentation problems, right? Does the membership body have issues serving the needs and facilitating the management of committees, sections, regions, special interest groups, program participants? Larger membership bodies especially bring forward online community specifically to support a segment. Sometimes a single special interest group would be the focus of an entire online community presence if it's a significant enough presence. It's more common, though, for it to say, our membership body does have members in Asia. but we're UK based. We don't have a way to serve those members well. Let's put an online community presence out there so that every region can have the benefit of being able to talk, even in their native languages, in a place to facilitate some kind of more meaningful dialogue amongst those members, but also a channel for us to understand what they're talking about and where their needs can be better met, right? So the segmentation of membership bodies, special interest groups, all those kinds of things can be better met through online communities, often where you give them that groundwork to participate with each other. And then cultural problems, right? There's the culture part. The unicorn side of the spectrum is not to be ignored. But if you do feel that your members are seemingly, if there's absolutely no sense of belonging, right, for a member in a membership body, maybe because your members are widely dispersed, you don't have routine meetings where a large percentage of your members can join together. If you need a platform to help deliver and deliver your culture and allow it to further evolve, then that is certainly something that an online community can deliver. So looking at those kind of questions, asking those kinds of questions, you can do analysis against those problem areas, and then also ask those kinds of questions to your members, right? It's always a good idea to ask questions around their member benefits when you're considering an online community platform or considering online community as a solution set. Don't ask them, right, would you like an online community? Memberships, a lot of members in your membership body will not know what an online community platform is. They will not have utilized one, right? So ask them about the member benefits delivery that they would like to see enhanced. Would you like to connect with other members in online spaces? Is a much better question, for example, than to ask, would you like an online community? So when you've done that kind of analysis and you've got some input from your members, then kind of put together a little matrix on a piece of paper, for example, and say, okay, which of these issues are impacting the most members and which are threatening revenue? And often the revenue threat is that the renewals aren't happening, right? The churn rate is too high. Online community is proven to help reduce the churn rate. There are some stats out there that I've seen in the past on members that participate in the online community of a membership body have a renewal rate which is typically 2% higher or more, depending on the body, than the rank and file membership. So so again, this is really important to talk about the member benefit delivery side, but our unicorn friend is there. Culture is part of the conversation, obviously, right? So and moving forward, even if you don't have that digital strategy, look at that analysis, perform that kind of analysis, and then compare your biggest issues impacting the most members and threatening the most revenue against the community applications which are common in the membership sector, right? Think about, do we need to have an all-member forum for just general exchange and facilitating our sense of membership and maybe our culture a little bit more? Or are there problems in, we don't have a learning management system or platform at all. We have groups of people or student members that are trying to learn, but we don't have a dedicated resource for them. Or we have a mentoring program that needs to have an online presence. Online community platforms like online community platforms often will have a mentoring module or an ability to be configured to serve a mentoring need for a specific program, right? So think about your business needs, do that kind of assessment. Think about it from the perspective of members, where would they have a more powerful membership experience if they're communicating with each other, and then compare that against the applications that are possible, right? And then typically we recommend not going for all 12 or 15 different types of uses on the initial rollout. We do typically recommend on starting with online community to start off with focusing on 2 or 3 of these areas so that you can really deliver something that's focused and attending to a specific gap in the member benefit experience. So when we do those consultancy exercises with membership bodies, what we're often finding is that especially the smaller organizations, they want to start with the big forum. They want to have the all-member forum as the initial rollout because they're recognizing that they just are having an interconnectivity gap, and they want to surface the ability for members to ask questions against each other and develop that Q&A of best practices and just facilitate that a little bit of that softer side where members can actually support each other with their careers, and then have that relationship creep left towards that unicorn side. For the largest membership bodies, what they're often doing is saying, we want to start small. We have subpopulations that we need to distinctly serve. And I think that is in part because in the membership sector, in the largest membership bodies, there are often silos within the staffing and the org chart of the membership body staff, where this team that is the team that manages region and section affairs, they're the ones that say we need to have a solution like online community, and so it's brought forward in the larger membership body with the interest of the staff who manages that segment to say this is the kind of solution we need for the segment. And then after it proves itself, it can often it is often noticed by by senior executives, et cetera, and then they start to think about the broader application of online community across the membership body. So typically, the starting small approach does require a little bit more. When I say start small, meaning not an all-member forum. Like some of these larger membership bodies might have a segment that is 5,000 to 10,000 or 20,000 members. So not an all-member forum, but dedicated to perhaps a region, a special interest group, a segment of the population, students, right? So the strategy will often be serve a segment for the larger membership bodies, and then for the largest membership bodies, it's often serve a segment for the larger membership bodies, and then give us an all-member forum so people can just start talking right away. It's much more the initial community rollout for the smaller and mid-sized membership bodies, those that are under 20,000 members in total. But James, thoughts on the community strategy and the launch strategy as part of that?
Definitely, yeah. So I think regardless of whether what your community strategy or launch strategy is, whether you're starting small, whether you're starting big, there are some key best practices that are always going to apply. I think that the most important probably of those is to ensure that you've got the right internal staff and community members, volunteers, roles, and you need to have those roles well defined, and you need to have them defined with key and specific responsibilities. So in terms of internal roles, you need an executive sponsor. I think first and foremost, that this is going to be the person who has the buying authority within the client organization. They will have green lighted, or they're likely to have green lighted a community project, and will have been involved in securing funding for that project as well. They'll be the person setting the goals, and they'll be there supporting the other key internal roles, namely the implementation project manager and the community manager, working there as a kind of fixer to help them achieve those goals kind of outlined for the community. In the longer term, that executive sponsor, they're going to be doing things like reviewing reports, sort of communicating status updates, and that they'll be really leading that decision making at a sort of a high level in terms of kind of the evolution of the community. The next key internal role is that implementation project manager role I just mentioned. So this is often, especially during the implementation phase, it's going to be shared between someone on the client side and someone on the vendor side. So on the client side, they're going to really lead on the delivery of that community platform, and really all aspects of the delivery of that community project are going to be within their wider purview. It's quite common that that the IPM will obviously lead during that implementation phase. They may well and quite commonly do transition to take over that community manager role following the launch of the community. another key role within again on the client side is that community manager role. So they're the person, they're going to be effectively the platform runner. They're going to be that member facing kind of face of the community, and they're going to be the person charged with executing the community strategy towards those goals, which will be defined usually at the executive sponsor level. The skills that you need for being a good community manager, really it's all about soft skills. So you need those communication skills. Ideally you need some leadership capabilities as well. You need to be fluent with external social media platforms and of course the platform that you're managing. You need to have a kind of good data sense as well, so you can identify kind of trends, opportunities for engagement relatively easily. I think the last important internal role that really you should always ensure that you kind of have filled is that technical lead. So they're going to be leading on elements like CRM integration, the branding and design of the community platform, the testing of that platform prior to delivery. They'll also be executing small changes during the life of the community platform, and they'll also probably be assisting in creating things like reports on the community, potentially combining those metrics or data points with CRM data and other data sources, in order to inform things like engagement scoring and so on. On the volunteer side, and I think that the kind of catch-all term we use to describe kind of roles on the volunteer side is influencers. So whilst it's really important to have kind of staff activity within a community platform, and that is appreciated by members, in my experience, real value is only provided when members engage with one another. So having members who contribute to the community really is always going to be essential for any successful community. In terms of the kind of persona that influencers kind of describe, that there's kind of three key different types of volunteer you're looking for. The first is a knowledge leader. So this is a member who's going to be, say, widely known and respected as knowledgeable in a specific kind of interest segment. You'll have and obviously can comment on originate content themselves, can comment on content which is relevant to their area of expertise. You'll also have organizational leaders. So these are going to be members with specific leadership roles within the organization. So they might be serving on your board, they might be chairing a volunteer community, committees, trustees, or similar. And again, it's important to have these organizational leaders involved, as they can invite, they can bring other members and involve other members and provide that kind of leadership on the forum. And finally, you have community enthusiasts, and these are members potentially they haven't got a strong professional reputation just yet, but they'll be willing to help the community accept and support the community by performing kind of community tasks. So really important to I think irrespective of your community strategy to have all of those roles filled. The next key point here is to ensure that your volunteers are invested in the success of the community. So you've got to ensure that you've identified and engaged those knowledge leaders, those organizational leaders, and those community enthusiasts at the earliest opportunity. They're the ones who are going to help spark conversations. They're going to revive dying posts, or sectors of the community. They're going to be the ones offering assistance to other community users, when you have really trusted volunteers, they can even help do things like moderate community activities. So they really are assets. In terms of kind of who to think to involve, volunteer groups, committees, those super engaged members. You can even use, if you do have any existing engagement scoring methodology, an existing engagement scoring in place, you can utilize that to help identify potential people to to try to engage in the community, as sort of super engaged members tend to be quite keen to get involved. And I think the key one other key thing here as well is getting involved, and I think you touched on this earlier, Mark, but getting volunteers involved in that community really helps to foster that sense of belonging, and obviously it's rewarding active and positive community participants by kind of helping to elevate their profiles as well.
Thanks, James. I think that, those are those roles. We typically, all those roles are, as we're describing them, they are for the before launch, right? To have those volunteers in the community. It's very important to have the community be vibrant and thriving when any rank and file member makes their first visit to it. They need to see that obvious value and that application to the reasons why they joined the membership body in the first place. And I think that, those after that launch, a lot of those, best practices that are envisioned and utilized, those volunteers posting, all those things, if those are in place before launch, they do tend to extend out after the launch so that those populations are still taking an interest in being involved in the project. But James, more thoughts about during, launch is a big part of year one, obviously, but then in that first year of the community's establishment, some other, general thoughts on what happens in year one when membership bodies adopt online community.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, yeah, if you look at this slide here, so leading with content within the context of your broader digital strategy is absolutely key. And what we mean by this is that it's important to be mindful of the strategic goals of your digital strategy when it comes to your content. Ideally, you don't want internal silos of staff to be owning specific parts of your technology estate in isolation. You want to be in a place where all of the teams within your organization ideally are coordinating the user experience across your digital properties. So we're talking the online community as well as the web presence, potentially if you have an app, your email journey. So that's coordinated across all of those kind of digital storefronts, and also that you need ideally to ensure that the data story from all of those different parts of your estate is clearly recorded and actionable, because that is what is going to help to inform your future decision making. I think it's also important to mention that because your community can deliver on so many different membership benefits, it's imperative that it's considered a key part of your wider membership engagement strategy. Another key thing to think about in year one is seeding and sprouting, and really this is a term that relates directly to content, which is, in my view, that primary driver of community value. I think, as Mark mentioned just now, your members need to see valuable, engaging content really on their first visit. Otherwise, they're unlikely to return for another one. It's also worth noting that the value of that content is going to be amplified by your community members. So conversations around that content reinforce its value and help it to kind of spread out. That's really what we mean by sprouting. In terms of kind of finding relevant content, sourcing content, for inclusion within your community, there's loads. Normally within membership organizations, there's loads available. So you can look to your member magazine, you can look at kind of content on your main website, you can look at content within newsletters, within blogs, etc. A lot of this is going to be interesting and worthy of inclusion in the community. And the idea is to identify content that is going to serve as an effective seed, and the concept is that those discussions are going to sprout from that seed content. Mark, I'm pretty sure you did you come up with the seeding and sprouting?
Yeah, I have all kinds of I mean, I used to be a speechwriter at one point, so I try to get creative at points. But so seeding and sprouting, when I describe online community projects when working with membership bodies, especially, we talk about it in terms of being a garden party. If you're going to invite your members to your garden party, you don't want them to walk into a dirt patch and think about how great this soil looks. I could put a seed in the ground and watch it grow over 6 months. That's not how a garden party works. How it works is you invite people into a lush, space that has growth, that has fruit on the trees already, and they feel comfortable there. They feel like they're getting some value there. They feel like they're enjoying their time there. And that seeding and sprouting is key to be performed before the actual launch. That sprouting, so the example of, James, you gave an example a second ago of like, maybe there's a journal article, which is the seed, right? So the seed would be the journal article, but you may facilitate a sprout off of that seed in the online community when that journal article is posted there. It's just, just posting the journal article in a conversation space is okay. Maybe people will talk about it, but if you reinforce that the conversation space is there to augment the value of that article, such as having a post from the author of the article, such as having someone who found a lot of value in the article commenting on the specific section where they found value, or asking a question about that article, or having a poll about the value of this article and whether or not these tactics that are recommended are applicable to your particular sub-industry, for example. That's seeding and sprouting, right? So when that terminology kind of extends out of my use of the term garden party for that initial community launch as being the goal there. And then James, on this last bullet point, I don't try to achieve all the benefits at once. We've talked about that earlier. You can see that there are a number of different things membership bodies rely on online communities to do.
It's just about ensuring you have that iterative approach, and you're looking to introduce the functionality, that provides the most value at the earliest stage of your community's evolution. Then you can be iterative from then on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that one of the wonderful things about online community platforms is that you can change them incredibly quickly. If you want to swap out images, colors, text, 5 seconds to do. If you want to stand up new areas of conversation, close down older areas, consolidate ones that were there, close a topic, open a topic, mention someone to come into the conversation, all those little points of iteration on the platform and on the community architecture, right? The structure of the categories of conversation that are available, the permissions on them, all extremely flexible. So when it is time to iterate, you can easily stand up the segments for supporting that other business need really rapidly. But we typically don't recommend that iteration on standing up something else if the part that you've stood up initially wasn't successful. Now, for example, if you've launched an online community which was dedicated to facilitating what's an example? Facilitating an all members forum, but it didn't take off. You didn't do the seeding and sprouting. When members went there, they said this thing doesn't have any value. They didn't come back. That's not when we would recommend standing up your mentoring program in the online community until that initial community objective is achieved, or recognizing that this objective is now no longer what we want to achieve and transitioning it to a complete utilization of the community from being an all-member forum kind of approach to being more of a mentoring program facilitation. So, but hit your goals and then move on to the next one is the larger point. Typically, if you started big, the community value should be established, right? The understanding of the value of the community platform is important for the iteration to occur, is really the key here, right? So if you have started big and you've got an all members forum, don't be surprised if your special interest group leaders and your committee chairs, et cetera, say, hey, can I have a little slice of this for my committee? Can I have a special interest group segment for the working group as we're developing this paper on this topic? The answer is yes, that can all be done, and that can be done by staff within 5 minutes of standing up that segment. But you want to do those points of iteration for a large group. When you start with a large group, you can expect that when it is successful, you will have your members coming to you, especially your leaders, saying, this works. I want a piece of this to help me do my job better as a volunteer in leading this segment. And if you started small, if you are perhaps one of those larger membership bodies that has started with a segment of support through the online community at first, you are also going to be able to fairly easily go broader and bring it forward, because, you know, in most membership bodies, people are not only in one little pot of the segments of the organization. There will be someone who is in a small, somebody who might be in the small firms member quotient might also be on the finance committee, for example, things like that. So you will have the ability to have people that are enthusiastic about the community start to take those conversations that were already established, and those relationships that are already established, and leverage them through the next phases of community launch. And you're also, because the communities are largely iterable, there may be some conversations. So for example, if you started off serving a segment of maybe your student members, there may be some questions that they have asked that are of complete value for the all members forum approach, for example. And so an online community platform will be very easy to take those posts and transition them to the all members forum if you felt that that was the way you wanted to go, right? So in general, big picture, what we would say is that you start with your community strategy, understand which aspects of your member benefits delivery you want to bring online community forward for. Start with those, focus on those, achieve those goals, and then think about what the next bullet points are on the list of the possible goals that can be met. But don't, you know, the classic mistakes are things like, we've got 137 special interest groups. We're going to stand up a community segment for all of them on day one without facilitating any kind of understanding from the special interest group chairs as to what the community is or how it's appropriately used. When there is a large application like that across a lot of small segments, what we typically recommend is start with one, make sure that segment chair is fully supported, make sure they understand the tools that are there, make sure they understand how they can set up polls or how they can make something a wiki article so that their group can collaborate on it, make sure they have understanding of where all these points of configuration and utility are so that you can demonstrate one of those segments being really successful with it, and then have that that segment chair for, you know, in a best case scenario, be in a position to say, you know, these worked for me, these didn't work for me, and then refine your strategy on supporting your special interest groups with the community tools going forward. So lots of opportunities for iteration and moving forward. And I see we're near at the end of time here, Rebecca.
Absolutely, you know, that's been it's just such a download of information. I know even for me, I won't show you my piece of A4, but I've written so many notes just myself, just to go, oh, that's really interesting. Must pick up on that again. What I would say is that, you know, the questions we've come in, actually, we've addressed quite a few of them as we've gone around sort of curating content, success measures, you know, and actually, I don't want to run over time. So in the post-event email I send, you know, if there's anybody out there and you've got burning questions, I know sometimes on a webinar like this, you need to digest that information, perhaps watch the on-demand recording again, but keep in touch, send through any questions you've got, and I can put you in touch with Mark and James, I'm sure, as well. And those links we've got, I think, you know, I'll send those out again. In the last like 2 minutes, I'm going to just, you know, just ask an off-the-cuff, you know, question to you both. So if you've got a top tip to our audience out there, they're getting started, what would be your top tip around online community?
Yeah, I would say that don't sweat the platform so much. There are lots of good community platforms out there that achieve different goals. Really just start to think about how an online community platform can be part of your member benefits delivery systems. Where are your gaps? Where are you finding that your members are saying, I'm underserved, or I need to have better support in these areas? Do that kind of assessment, and then look at what online communities can do and think about the different approaches that can be taken.
Brilliant. How about you, James?
What I'd add to that is content. And the way I like to think of this is often with online communities, you'll have, you know, specific kind of forums or areas within the community for specific subsections of your membership base, specific communities. When there's not content there, it's akin to walking into an empty room. That's the issue, and no one is going to stay in an empty room for long. You need to, if you're going to be creating a space to engage specific sections of your membership, you need to ensure that there is content that's relevant for them, pre-populated within that space, so that they can comment on it, so that they can add to it. If they walk into an empty room, they're just going to walk out again.
Perfect. And I think on that note, that's, you know, brilliant advice and tips for people to take away with them. So thank you so much, and thank you to those of you that have engaged with us through the questions and in the chat which are coming through as well. Please do keep in touch. I'll be in touch a little later on today with some of the post-event links and recordings, and as I said, we can put you into touch with James and Mark. I'm sure if you've got any more follow-on questions. So James, Mark, thank you so much.
Thank
Really
you.
insightful hour.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.